Hey guys, welcome back. This is second part of this video, section 4.3. I am going to be talking about the different forms that you guys should know by now when you are writing equations, or if you guys want to graph. It's really helpful to know what form you are using to graph. So let's go ahead and jump into it. And the three forms, you guys see them on the screen. One of them is called the slope-intercept form. The second one is called the standard form, and the third one is called the point-slope form. Now, you have to know what they look like in order to identify what form you are using. So the first one here, y equals mx plus b. When you have the slope-intercept form, m represents the slope, which is rise over run. That tells you if you go up, down, left, or right. B is your y-intercept, so where the line is going to cross the y-axis. And if you guys do not know or really don't have the slope, well, you guys can find the slope by using this formula. M equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. That means that they'll give you guys 2 points and you guys can find the slope. The second form is the standard. Standard form is when you have x and y on the same side. So we have ax plus by equals c. A, b, and c are integers, so there will be some negatives, positives, no fractions, no decimals, but you have to check that a is positive. So this number here, the x, has to be positive. If it's negative, you have to multiply everything by -1 to make the a positive. If you have the standard form, the way you guys can graph is by using the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Now remember, to find the x-intercept, you set y equal to 0, and to find the y-intercept, you set x equal to 0. Once you guys find those x-intercept and the y-intercept, you plot the points and you connect the points. The third one is called the point-slope form. In the point-slope form, we have y minus y sub 1 equals m, which is the slope, times the quantity of x minus x sub 1. M is the slope. X1 and y sub 1 are the numbers from a coordinate point, from an actual order pair. So you guys will have some point here. And if you guys don't have m, but they give you guys 2 points, well, you can also find the m by using the slope formula. So there's many things you have to know, many things you have to understand, but the main thing is identify what form you guys have, and then you guys can remember what you must know. So we have the slope-intercept form, the standard, and the point slope. Now, you can also change any equation to look like any of these forms. So for example, from standard, you guys can change it to slope-intercept form. From point slope, you guys can change that to look like the standard form, or you guys can change it to look like the slope-intercept form. And you can use any of these forms to graph the line of the equation. One thing that you guys have to know, remember, this one and this one, they have something in common. They have m, they have the slope. So you guys can use the slope to find points on the line. This one here, we have the y-intercept. Not on this one though. On this one, we have a point the line goes through and the slope. So you guys can plot the point and use the slope to find a second point. On this one, you find the y-intercept and then use the slope to find a second point. This one doesn't have a real slope, but we do have 2 points, the x-intercept and the y-intercept, right? So we are not going to graph right now, but I'm going to show you guys how to change from one form to a different one, so you understand that even though they look different, they are the same line. So you guys see these two forms right here. You guys have on the left side y minus 6 equals 3 times the quantity of x plus 4. And on the right side, you have a fraction, y plus 7 equals -3 over 2 times the quantity of x plus 1. Well, first, let's go ahead and check what we need to find. It says here that we are going to write the equation in standard form. So first of all, you have to know what that form looks like. So you guys can rewind the video, you guys can check, or I am going to write down the form here so you guys can see it, and you guys can know what we're looking for. So standard form is when we have the x and the y on the same side, ax plus by, this is a b right here, equals your constant, your c. So look, compare. This one doesn't look like this. This is the point slope form because we have y minus a number equals a number, m, times the quantity of x plus a number. So in order to change this to this, well, we're going to have to simplify, and we have to get the x and the y on the same side. So first, I am going to distribute the 3. I'm going to multiply. So we have y minus 6 on one side and 3x plus 12 on the other side. Now I need to move the x next to the y. So I'm going to do the opposite. Remember, this is the equal sign, kind of like a border. So you have to go to the other side and you do the opposite. So I am going to subtract, and I'm going to subtract because we have a positive 3x, so the opposite is negative. So minus 3x over here. So the x and the y are not like terms, so I'm going to have negative 3x plus y minus 6 equals, that's gone, 12. Now this one here has to go to the other side because in the standard form, x and y are on the same side, but there's no constant. The constant's on the other side of the equation. So I am going to get rid of that constant, the 6, minus 6. So I'll do the opposite, plus. And when I do that, we have negative 3x plus y, this is gone, equals 18. Check the a value. Remember, a is the one with the x. A cannot be negative, so we're going to have to change that to a positive. So all you do, you need to multiply this number by a negative 1, and that's going to turn positive 3. But if you multiply one number times negative 1, you have to multiply the whole thing. Everything, that's why I put parentheses, everything by negative 1. So I'm going to distribute, and I'm going to get a positive 3x minus y equals negative 18. Notice what happens. When you multiply by negative 1, all you have to do is change the sign from a negative to a positive, from a positive to a negative, and this is a positive, it went to a negative. So my answer is right here. This is the standard form. You guys have the x and the y on the same side. Now let's go ahead and look at fractions. When you guys have fractions, you need to distribute, and it's a lot easier to get rid of fractions. So I'm just going to leave it like this so you can see the standard form right up on the screen. So let's multiply first. I'm going to distribute, I'm going to distribute. So we have y plus 7 equals negative 3x over 2. Remember that you guys multiply the top times the inside and keep the denominator. And we have minus 3 over 2. I do have a negative fraction times a positive. That's going to be negative. And 3 times 1 is 3. And keep the denominator. Let's get rid of the denominator. To get rid of it, you just multiply by the denominator. So I'm going to multiply all of this right here times 2, because once again, that is the denominator. So I'm going to have, when I distribute, 2y plus 14 equals, now I will multiply 2 times negative 3 and keep the denominator. So it's going to be negative 6x over 2 and minus 6 over 2. I do multiply 2 times this number on the top, so that's negative 6, and keep the denominator. Now I'm going to simplify. So when I simplify, I have 2y plus 14 on one side, negative 3x. Remember that you guys can divide. You can also divide this one here, minus 3. Okay. We don't have fractions, but the x and the y are not on the same side. So the x minus 3, I do the opposite, plus 3x. I want the x and the y on the same side. So I'm going to have positive 3x plus 2y plus 14 equals, this is gone, negative 3. The 14 has to go to the other side, so I'm going to subtract. I do the opposite. So I will have 3x plus 2y, that's gone, equals negative 17. And my answer in standard form is here. You have the x and the y on the same side. The constant is on the other side. and the a value, remember that's the one with the x, is positive, cannot be negative. This number is b, this one can be negative or positive, and your constant can also be negative or positive. The only one that has to be positive is the 3, and we cannot have fractions or decimals. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. On the next slide, I'm going to show you how to change it to a different form. Now this one, the form that we're looking for, let me just zoom in a little bit here. It says you want to write the equation in slope-intercept form. So now you guys need to know what form this looks like. The slope-intercept form is when we have the y by itself. So we have y equals the slope m times x plus the y-intercept b. Notice that the equations we have are not in standard form. This is not standard. This is not slope-intercept form. This is actually point slope because we have a y minus a number, or you can have a plus 2, equals 3 times the quantity of x plus a number. So you guys need to simplify and get y by itself. So I'm going to do just that right now. I'm going to distribute the 3. I'm going to multiply right here. So I'm going to have y minus 11 equals 3x plus 12. The y is almost by itself. I'm going to put a box around the y. Notice the y has a minus 11 next to it. So I'm going to do the opposite to get rid of that number. Plus is the opposite of minus. Plus 11 here. So I have y, that's gone, equals 3x plus 23. Notice the y is by itself. Y equals, just like the slope-intercept form, y equals mx. So this is m plus b. So my answer in slope-intercept form, right there. So let's try one with fractions. Same thing as the previous slide. You guys need to multiply. You need to distribute. And then you guys need to get rid of fractions. Well, this one, you don't have to get rid of fractions per se, but we want y by itself, and if we get a fraction on the y, it's a lot easier to get rid of fractions. But let's go ahead and multiply. I have y minus 1 equals 4x over 5. So notice that you do multiply the 4 times the x, 4 times the x, and keep the denominator. And then multiply the next one, 4 times 5, and keep the denominator. So 4 times 5 is 20, positive, over 5. I can reduce. Yes, you can divide these two right here. So y minus 1 equals 4x over 5 plus, and reduce to 4. Now, I'm going to put a box around the y. Look at the y. It doesn't have a fraction. So on this one, it's okay to have a fraction next to the x because the y doesn't have one. If you guys have a fraction next to the y, that's where you guys have to get rid of fractions. But y has to be by itself. So the only thing I have to get rid of here is the minus 1. So I'm going to add 1, and I will get y, this is gone, equals 4 over 5 x. You can put the x next to the fraction. It's okay. You can put it on the top of the fraction, but it's very common to have it next to the fraction. So 4 over 5x plus 5. So we have the slope-intercept form. Alright guys, so this is it for this video. I'm going to do another video for the next section, 4-4, so make sure you guys look for that. And make sure you practice, and I'll see you guys later.